Welcome back to Home Theater Gurus. This is episode 10. All week I've been feeling like a dirtbag, right? Last week I basically told you guys that, something that's been instilled in most of us since birth, that it was all a lie, basically. I told you that if you don't have Room EQ Wizard, or if you don't have a square rectangular room that is predictable, you guys with living rooms and open concept rooms, you're basically screwed. So I basically told you the crawl method sucks, which it does, and nobody argued. I think once you saw the last episode, you can't argue with that, because once you understand what you're looking for and you saw some of the responses that I showed you, it makes sense. No one's going to argue with something that makes sense, but I left you hanging and I didn't come up with another method. Even though I've had some methods that I've thought of, over the last few weeks that I was like, I think that'll work. And I tested some, and one method didn't work very well, but another method did. So that's what we're going to cover today. And this is going to be for you guys that aren't ready for Room EQ Wizard. But just because you're not ready for Room EQ Wizard doesn't mean you guys don't deserve to find good spots in your rooms. You shouldn't have to live with dips and nulls just because you can't hear them with your ears when you're, using the crawl method, and you don't have another choice because it's either Room EQ Wizard or, what else. So that's what we're going to cover today. I'll come up with a method and it works. So let's go ahead and find out about this method. So I was thinking all week, what could I do, or some method. Actually, I've been thinking about this for a few weeks, but really this last week, a method that I could come up with that would really help you guys and wouldn't cost you any money if you're not ready for Room EQ Wizard and you just want to place your subs and make sure that the subs are placed, well, so you don't have dips and nulls. And if you do have, a dip in one of your subs, you'll know it and you can fix it with the second sub. Things you can't do by crawling around on the floor trying to listen by ear. So one thing we all have is this right here. Everyone has a cell phone. So I've always had an app on my phone called an RTA app, or a real-time analyzer. And what it does is it picks up sound in the room or, wherever you're at in real time. And, it's really good. I've always used it for like movies. Say like, John Wick, you want to know where that impact is, with the gunshots or a kick or anything you happen to be watching. Interstellar, when the plane's going down at the beginning. A lot of people think that that's a lot of low frequencies. It's really not. And see that RTA, you can get that out while you're listening to it. You can rewind it, and you can actually see those spikes and where that action is happening in what frequencies is happening at. And it's really easy to see. And of course on the cell phone, it's not super accurate as far as intensity goes. But I've compared it against, Room EQ Wizard, and it's accurate as far as like where the impact is happening at. And it's really not that far off, at least on mine. I've got a Samsung Note 8. It's the amplitude, or the amount of energy. It's within 5 dB of, what I get with Room EQ Wizard. Now it does drop off early, around 30 hertz or so. It starts to, it's not very, it just drops off because the phone's not picking up, that low. You'll still pick up some, but it's just dropping off pretty heavily. But from 30 to hertz on up, it's really, really good. Just a really good tool, and I've always used it for movies, which that's something you guys may want to do. It's really interesting to see, like you want that impact or that chest kick, you can see yourself where it's at. So I was thinking, what can I do, or how can I use that so y'all can, or you guys can place your subs? So what I've come up with is, I'm going to call, this is episode 10. There's going to be an episode called 10.1. And on that one, I have 6 minutes of recorded sweeps. And these are Room EQ Wizard sweeps. And I made one from 10 hertz to 120 hertz. And it's just one after another. And so what you can do is you can take this RTA app. Or, I found one for Android that works really good. It is called Spectroid. And the reason I like it is because, say like from 10 to 120 hertz, it gives you a lot of wiggles up and down, where some of them are just kind of like this. It's like they're not really measuring, it's only measuring certain points. So this is one that I found that had quite a bit of resolution in that area. I don't have a rag, so I'm using the back of my hand there. So it actually works good and gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on in your room. So it's Spectroid. Now, if you've got Apple, you may have to find another one. Maybe Spectroid's available on Apple. I'm really not sure. So, I'll tell you what I'll do. If If someone out there with an Apple device, an iPhone, can find a good app, I'm going to put it in the descriptions. One that has, one that has a lot of resolution in that area, and you're fixing to see me use Spectroid in my room. So you find something like that, or maybe even better, let me know, and I'll put it in the descriptions for all you guys with iPhones. Just go down there and look for it. So anyway, just to remind you guys from the last episode, what you're looking for is not a flat response. If you have a spot that's got a dip, say the sub has to go. Let's go ahead and draw a little room out here. All right, so here's a room. Sub has to go in that left corner. Okay, at your seat though, you've got a dip. Okay, you can place the other sub somewhere in the room. Say you got 3 or 4 spots. You can go ahead and measure and try to find some place that has extra output at that dip. And that's basically what you're looking for. Okay, so I finished our room. It's not pretty, but it doesn't have to be for this. Let's say our seats are here. We've got a sub here, and you've got a sub. Let's just put it right here because that's where they could go. Maybe you're limited. So you can go ahead and just take your phone and you can run these sweeps here. Just say disconnect this sub and just get that one playing. And you can get your sweeps going. Go to the YouTube. We're going to go to episode 10.1. Play it and get your phone at your seat, and you'll play that sub and you'll get your response basically. And if you see like a heavy null at 40 hertz or a big dip, okay, you'll turn it off and you'll come over here and turn this sub on. And you're going to want to make sure this sub has extra output at that area, because that's going to help you determine if this sub is in a good spot. Now say this sub isn't in a good spot. Say at 40 hertz, where this one had that dip, it has no extra output. It's linear, or may even have a swag in the same area. Hopefully, you want extra output there. If it's not a great spot, you can just go ahead and put the sub on the seat right here. And you can start, you don't crawl around now. You can just take your phone and put your phone at a spot. Let a few sweeps go by. You can reset that max, that max hold line. You can reset it, and you can run a couple sweeps or let a few sweeps play and look at it. And if it's got extra output there, great. That's going to be a viable spot for that second sub. If it doesn't, say, well, maybe I can put my sub over here. Go back there. Go look at it. See how it looks. And so you're trying to find a spot that's going to complement or fix the issues of maybe the sub that you can't move. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, something to keep in mind when we're measuring in the room with our cell phone, that we want to pay attention to where the speaker baffle is going to be, because that's where the sound is emitted from. You may have a sub that's 3 feet long. So if that's the case, and it's got a driver and a port in the front, you don't want to go measuring in the corner just because you're going to stick the speaker in the corner. You want to measure where the speaker baffle is going to be, because that's where the sound is going to be emitted from. So, keep that in mind, and maybe go ahead and measure, put some tape down in your room, and measure off the wall exactly where the center of that speaker baffle is going to be. And say your sub, your driver is going to sit 2 feet off the ground or 18 inches off the ground. Have an idea. It doesn't have to be perfect, within it. Just get it close, ballpark it. If it's shin level or knee high, just hold the phone down there by your knee. Just stand right there at the tape, kind of hold right above the tape, that marks where the baffle is going to be. You just want to be close, because that is actually where acoustically the sub is going to be located. So keep that in mind and kind of prep for that before you start taking your measurements. So let's go ahead and head over into the movie room or to the theater room right here, and we're going to try it out. Now, in my room, I'm not moving subs around, I'm not putting one on my seat. I'm just going to show you, I'm going to be playing one sub. It's going to be my front right sub, and I'm just going to show you some other areas in the room that we're going to look at how the measurements differ as you move around the room, and just look at some of the nulls. And you're going to see the Spectroid app in action, and you see how it is picking up those dips and nulls that are going to be in our room. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to have to do is find an app that will measure RTA. So go to your app store and type in RTA measurements. Now there's a bunch of them to choose from, and a lot of them don't really have good resolution below like 120 to say 20 hertz. It's like they're not measuring at a lot of different points, so it's easy to miss stuff. And one I found that's pretty good is Spectroid. And it actually does a really good job of capturing the low ends, pretty well. And we can zoom in on it, and we'll do that here in a few minutes when we get into the app. So I would suggest just using Spectroid. Now, I'm not sure about Apple. Hopefully it's available on Apple too. Alright, and once you're ready to start running some sweeps in your room, you're going to go to the Home Theater Guru's page. and you're going to find subwoofer sweeps from 10 to 120 hertz. Now these are going to be repetitive sweeps for 6 minutes, and that's going to allow you just to move your phone with using your RTA app that you have, and you're going to kind of get an idea of what the frequency response looks like in those areas. Okay, when you open up the Spectroid app, it's going to look like this. And now if you take your 2 fingers and put on the screen, you know, you can do like with a photo where you can zoom out and you can zoom in. And you can also go above and below, and that's going to kind of change the up and down axis. And that's so it's going to make the peaks kind of, it's like smoothing. So when you go like this, it's going to be a lot more erratic and harder to read. And then when you squeeze your hands together, you know, up and down, it's going to close it up and make it easier to read. Now if you look right here, the yellow response is real time, and the red is basically a peak. It's measuring, so you have your average basically is what your red is. So at the top left, we can hit reset max hold. You hit these 3 little dots, reset max hold, and it's going to reset that red line. So if I snap my fingers, hello, hello. Well, okay, that's down there below 1000 hertz. Let's zoom in a little bit. Now, so we're going to zoom out left to right a little bit, and you see at the bottom down there, it's now we're looking at less. We're not looking at the whole frequency response anymore. Now take your 2 fingers and put them on the screen and drag from left to right. We want to keep seeing 0 down there at the left. Now if I snap my fingers, you can kind of see where it is. See, it's just over 2000. That's the snap of my finger. So it can also tell you where a peak is, like in a movie. This is a pretty cool little app to have, like John Wick, if you want to know where it's kicking. See, we can keep on zooming in and pulling over to the left so we can stay in the subwoofer frequency. You know, now we're looking from 0 to 500 hertz. So right, snap of that finger is above that, but if we, you know, you can bang on something and kind of see where it is. Let's look at it. I'm going to knock on the wall here. Anyway, it's just a pretty cool app. You can see where things are happening real time in a movie if you want to. Let's go ahead and zoom back over to the subwoofer frequency. We want to get it from like 0 to 120 or so, or 30 to 120. Okay. Remember, the 2 fingers have to be on the screen to move the entire graph left and right. Alright. That's 20 to 120 hertz or so. Alright, so now we need to go ahead and get the subwoofer sweep going. Okay, here we go. Need to rewind it a little bit. Okay, here goes the sweep. Now I've got 1 subwoofer playing. Alright, I'm going to pause this for a second. Now to do this, of course, you know, you can put your sub on your sofa. Now if your sub's already laid out, you can actually play them one by one and put your phone app or your phone in your seating area where your head's going to be, and you can see how the subs are already, what their responses look like in their positions right now. Now if you're trying to find positions, you can go ahead and just put the sub in your seat, and this will be similar to the crawl method, only we can actually see what's happening instead of guessing. So let's go ahead and find a position for our sub. Okay, so you can see what's happening here as it's measuring the sweep. So once you find a spot, hit reset max hold and let it run a few sweeps. Go ahead and zoom the upper and lower. We want to get it zoomed in. There we go. Now we've got 5 dB between each division on the left there. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad. See, we've got a little bit of weak bass below, say 80 hertz. It starts dropping. So if this is where our sub's at for the first sub, you know, our second sub, we want extra output below 80 hertz. So say this is sub position 1. Let's keep on looking around the room. Let's go to another spot. Okay, let's hit that reset max hold again. Okay, so this one has a dip just under 60 hertz, and we can move that little green line, okay, right there at 59 hertz. So if this was our position, we know we have a dip to fix. So we wouldn't want to use this position to fix the position 1 because it had low energy in that area already. Let's find another position. Okay, reset max hold. Oh, a huge dip, 70 hertz. Definitely would not want to use this spot. So let's keep on looking. Okay, this one's got a dip, 73 hertz. Okay, now if you notice right here at 40 something hertz, if we're listening to music, this would actually sound pretty good, this spot. But past that, it's no good. Now, of course, you may find out the first position that you thought you wanted your sub. You may do this and find 2 other spots that are going to work better together. Now, this one doesn't look too bad. See, this one's got nice energy above 70 hertz, and actually doesn't look too bad across the board. It's got a little bit of weak bass around 59, but it's still not too bad. And the other spot had decent bass there, so these 2 spots would actually work well together. So let's just keep on looking. Let's say this was spot 1, and about the only spot that I'd say it really needs help is going to be in that, say 59 hertz, 57 to 59 hertz region. Let's look at this spot. Let's hit reset max hold. .59 hertz. Doesn't look too bad, but you see before there at 50 we've got a pretty good null. Well, it's not really too bad, but it's not great. So, but you see what we're doing, we can actually go around the room and find different spots for our subs, and you can capture these screenshots so you know what the response looks like in each one, and so then you can go back and compare, all of your pictures you have and all the different responses, the different seats. The main thing is if you've got a sharp null, you want to make sure the other sub is in a spot that can fix it. So let's look at this spot right here. Okay, this one's got a really bad null at 53 hertz. Let's say that's where sub 1's going to be. Let's move to another spot along the wall. Hit reset max hold. And look at that. That's really good. 53 hertz. It's got a little bit of pick me up, so it's not bad at all. This is actually a really good spot. So those 2 spots would work well. There's not many spots that spot wouldn't help out because it's got a pretty nice response as is. Let's look at this spot right here. Sharp null, we wouldn't want that one. Okay, see that one at 53's got nice energy. It's got a dip at 70, but that other spot would have fixed that dip. So as you see, we can have spots that have dips in the room because we can use the other subs to fix them. The thing is to find spots where one spot will fix the area of concern or the bad spots that the others. Okay guys, so as you see, that's pretty much it. We're just replacing our ear crawling around the ground with something that can actually take a measurement. Now, is it going to be as accurate as Umik-2 where we're measuring down to 5 hertz if we wanted to? No. Our phones are not as accurate as something like Umik-2 with a calibrated microphone and that kind of stuff. but they're going to work fine for just identifying major issues. I mean, if there's a null, you're going to see it. If you've got a big dip, you're going to see it. So just, you know, you might want to get some tape out and mark around, you know, like different spots on the ground. Take screenshots on your phone, you know, then maybe print it to your home printer, then get it and put it on that spot. It's going to take a little bit of work, but I mean, so does crawling around on the floor. Well, except for crawling on the floor, you're basically lost and you're just listening for boom, 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 and where that boom sounds the best. So this is going to be far, far, far superior to that. I mean, you could, you know, you could find several spots in your room and you could label them and find 4 or 5 spots that may work well together for future subs, and save them, put them in a binder or something, keep them for later. It's just good information to see how your room handles motor behavior based on your seating location at that time. Now, if you start moving a lot of furniture, you move your seats, you know, that's going to change and you'll have to redo this. Now, I don't advise or recommend this over Umik-2 Wizard in any way. I just wanted to come up with something, some kind of way to help you guys. You know, I didn't want to leave y'all hanging just saying, hey, you know, your sub crawl method sucks, and just leave it at that. You know, like you basically, you know, what are you supposed to do now? You may not want to do Umik-2 Wizard. You know, you've got to dump more money into it to do that. And, you know, you may not, that's something not everyone is willing to do or can do at this moment in time. So now once you get your 2 subs, say you find a spot there and you find a spot here, they both look good. You know, you had a null here and this sub's going to fix it. To align your sub, let your receiver do it. As we talked about in the last episode, just like with this here, with the sub crawl method where you can't really find it by ear, you can't find the perfect spots by ear, same thing's going to happen when you're trying to delay or adjust 2 subs by using phase or delay. You're not going to be able to do it at all any good by ear. Okay, you're not, it's just not possible. So let your equipment do its job, let your receiver adjust the delay between the 2 subs, you know, assuming that your receiver or processor can align 2 subs. If it can, once you find those 2 good spots, you've done your part. Let your receiver do its part, okay? And you can also use Spectroid after it's done. You know, once you do that, you can go ahead and play both subs. Go to your seat and make sure there's no dips or nulls, because you could have, say this sub fixed a null that was in this sub here. If you watched episode 7, subs out of phase or out of alignment can create dips that never existed in the 2 subs themselves. So, you know, if you see something like that, you may want to run your auto setup again. But ideally, if you know you checked your placement, you verified it, if it did its job, if your receiver did a good job at aligning them, you're going to come over here with your little Spectroid app or whatever, you know, we find for iPhone, and you're not going to see anything major. So let's go ahead and we're going to look at Spectroid real quick in my room at my seats. Now, you all know what my response looks like. Well, here's a picture of my response with Umik-2 Wizard. So now we're going to see what Spectroid picks up at my seats with all 4 subs playing. Okay, so I mean, it wasn't identical to what Umik-2 Wizard has, but you see at my seats it verifies there's no nulls. Okay, now of course, you know, it didn't measure the same response Umik-2 Wizard did. It's not using a calibrated mic. I'm using my phone, you know, my phone's mic. They do have some mics you can get from Dayton. I actually have one, but I didn't want to use it because I want to use something everyone has, just a basic cell phone. But you do see that even in my room, it verifies that my subs are aligned because there's no dips or nulls caused. You saw a nice smooth response. So, you know, don't think now this is not going to be the response in your room, you know, when you use Spectroid or something like that, because we're not using a calibrated, you know, file to calibrate the internal mic on our phones. We're just looking for the dips or nulls. We verified it, we're good to go. Let your receiver do it. And like I've said several times, house curves are great. That's what makes, you know, bass and the sound natural. So once you run your auto setup, highly recommend you use bass management, of course, and I highly recommend you use a loudness compensation app or application or software like Dynamic EQ or Yamaha, what is it, WiPo loudness. If that's not right, I'm going to post it right here because I can't remember what the name of it is right now because I don't have a Yamaha. But I think it's WiPo loudness or Yamaha loudness. Anyway, Dang, now I'm really trying to remember. But anyway, so we're just gonna, I highly recommend you use those basically, because that's what's gonna make your sound or your subwoofer, the low bass sound, natural. Okay, because it's based on how we perceive low frequencies at different volume levels. And they're like an active, both of those that I just mentioned are like an active house curve that change depending on how close you get to reference. As you get closer to reference, they back off a little bit. As you get further from reference, they're going to be engaged a little more and give a little more boosting, but it should sound much more natural than a response that's flat. We're going to go over that too. You know, I might go over that next. That or room modes. Probably try to get both of those in the next couple of weeks, because that has a lot to do with how we enjoy our room. A flat response is not going to sound good. And we're going to go over why and what happens to an accurate source as it travels over distance. So look for those 2 episodes coming up on room modes and just basically frequencies floating through the air and what happens to them when they leave the source before they hit our ears and what that response should look like. So, alright guys, that's going to be it for this episode, episode 10. Don't forget, the sweeps are going to be on episode 10.1. So I will see y'all for the next one.